Good morning, everyone. So today's topic is going to have to do with the uniting of our meditation practice and our everyday lifestyle, which is really, really important and often overlooked. A lot of people have the attitude and the idea that doing a bit of meditation practice in the morning, a bit of meditation practice at night fixes a whole lot of issues, fixes a whole lot of problems, but this is not the case. In fact, the purpose of meditation is not really to fix problems. As much as it may seem to a few, it's not actually the real cause. It's one of the side effects, and yes, meditation practice does fix some problems, but the purpose of meditation practice per se is to stabilize your mind and so it becomes workable, so you can actually work with your mind, you can actually use it, you can look a little deeper than you would usually be able to. So as you, or most of you know, that there are 3 trainings that we go through. The first one being the training of behavior, as I call it, where you refine your behavior so it doesn't give rise to long-term problems and suffering and misery, and you eliminate such behaviors. And on the other hand, you also cultivate behaviors that are useful to the path, that actually lift you up, that calm you, that give you more structure, that make your life more useful to yourself and others. So that's the first training. The purpose of this first training is to reduce suffering and to have a bit more leisure in your life that could be put to good use. And one of those good uses is to cultivate meditation practice. If our lifestyle and our actions and behaviors are so chaotic and wild that we have no time for meditation, then obviously you can't really develop anything further. You have to really start from scratch. You have to free up time. You have to check in with your lifestyle and see where are you stuck. Like, it's the basics. If your meditation practice doesn't work as you wish it would, you can ask yourself the hard questions, like, what about your lifestyle? What are you doing with your free time, for example? Simple question. When we have free time, I'm not talking about work time. Obviously, we all have work time, and but there's also plenty of free time. Even during work time, there may be the path from one room to another, from one office to another. Maybe you're traveling up in a big office building and you're using the lift. Maybe you have to go to the bathroom and so forth. So it's not always non-stop, every second work, is it? So there's lots of free time in between that we usually just, quote, use for rumination, just thinking random thoughts, perhaps work-related, perhaps personal, private stuff, perhaps just pure gibberish. But anyways, we're just thinking away. And at the end of the day, most of us don't really know or remember at all what we have actually thought about throughout the day, so it doesn't really seem to be all that important, all those thoughts. So one thing that you could be doing here is free up some time right there and make it your intention to bring more practice into those areas. Not to make life more stressful. In fact, the opposite should be the case. It should become a bit more easeful, less stressful, less filled up, less occupied, less burdened by random thoughts, emotions, feelings, and so forth. That would be an example of actually structuring your behavior in ways that are a bit more useful to yourself. So you're not coming back at home from work totally exhausted and burnt out. but you have some energy left because it didn't go into rumination, it didn't go into worrying, it didn't go into anticipation. So naturally you have more energy left, which you could then invest in other things. So one of the goals of this first kind of training is really to free up not only time but energy with which you could then ascend to the higher areas of the spiritual path. And that really begins with meditation practice. If you have more leisure, more time, more energy, then your meditation practice will be a bit more easy as well. Your meditation practice is kind of a mirror. I say that quite a lot. It reflects on how you're spending your time and your energy levels. They're clearly visible in that, right? You sit down and you close your eyes and you try to focus on your breath and you're all distracted or getting really tired, exhausted and so forth. That all shows you very clearly where potential errors are and how they could be fixed. If you have great meditation sessions every day, like in the morning, you're very focused, you're very mindful, able to keep the breath or whatever topic you have in your meditation practice well in mind, are very alert, you know what's going on each and every second and so forth. So if you have good sessions like this, then you're doing something right. The way of spending your everyday time is efficient. So that's the second training, right? Is meditation proper. And the third training then is all to do with transcending suffering directly. While meditation keeps you nice and calm, it's kind of like a tranquilizer. It's also often referred to by the Buddha as actually as a pleasant abiding in the here and now. It's a resting place, is meditation practice. It just offers him rest and it's pleasant. It's just a nice thing to do, right? But meditation per se doesn't have the power as such to overcome suffering. It kind of puts suffering on hold for a while. If you're doing it well, then you won't be suffering for the duration of your meditation session. And sometime afterwards as well, which is great. So life will, at best, become much more pleasant, much more happy. You have much more energy available. Yes, and so forth. But you won't overcome suffering. You can still as easily get annoyed. Things go wrong, and you get angry at things, and you still suffer. Well, as soon as that's suffering that you've put on hold while you were in your meditation session, as you come back out of it, it comes all back as it was before. You haven't changed your character. You just froze it for a little while. It's a bit of stillness. And that stillness is good. It's a good thing. Yes, it creates some space. Just like sleep is a good thing, right? You wake up next day, you feel refreshed, you have plenty of energy available to spend through the day, and that's a useful thing. Meditation in the same way can be a useful thing like this, but it does not have the power to put you out of suffering. What has the power to put you out of suffering is insight. It is a clear comprehension of suffering, its cause, and the end of suffering. So you understand the mechanics of suffering properly. You can reverse engineer it, so to say. You can let it go that way. And in order to do that, you'd have to be able to look really deeply into your suffering and be very precise. Most people lack precision in the way they look at themselves and their experiences. There's no precision at all. In just normal conversations that we have with people, completely lacks any kind of precision. We don't clearly define terms, for example. We just talk about things as if we know them, but for example, if I say consciousness, you hear something totally different from what I say. If I say love, you understand something else from what I'm saying, but both of us have the feeling we know what we're talking about, but actually we're talking past one another. Nobody really understands anything. And that becomes clearly obvious once we start to actually define terms and bring more clarity into a discussion. Let alone being able to stick with one topic until it is solved. The mind is very discursive. It likes to go from subject to subject. It makes associations and then jumps around like a monkey, right? That's why it's called monkey mind. It's jumping from branch to branch. It doesn't rest with one topic. So meditation will give you the ability to actually be rested with one topic and to bring clarity into that topic so you can solve the underlying problems. Let's say you're annoyed by some event in your life that has recently happened. Usually if you have no reflection whatsoever, you just blame the event for your annoyance. You just say, well, I'm annoyed because my neighbor practices the piano too loudly or something. So that makes me annoyed. It's his fault. It's the music. So we blame external factors. Now, if you're a bit more reflective, you may actually look directly at that annoyance and ask yourself, so why does that feeling that feels annoying, why does that actually arise? Is it really because of the music or is it because of other causes? If it was due to the music, then it would actually be annoying to everybody that hears the music. If the music is in its nature, if it was annoying, then it would be annoying to all of us, right? But obviously to the one who plays it, it is not annoying. It's very nice. Or maybe it is annoying because he has to practice a certain thing on this piano and he has to repeat it over and over again and he doesn't like that. But you get my point. It could be perceived in different ways. So the music can't be blamed. So what is it then that gives rise to suffering? And what does the suffering really consist of? Who is the sufferer? All very interesting questions. What is it that suffers the music exactly? If you were to narrow it down, what within myself is suffering the music? Is it the body? Well, in that case, for example, a corpse, would it have the capacity to suffer the music? Because it's a body, right? There is a body, so there should be some capacity to suffer the music, but there isn't. It isn't even heard. Even the corpse's eardrums may vibrate, but there is no perception of music. Let alone a corpse have someone pass out, totally drunk, pass out. And they play music, they also don't hear it. They have no memory, they can't recall it. There's no experience of music during that time. But there is a body. So the same person, if I'm annoyed at the music, if I were to pass out or be deeply asleep on some drugs or something like this, then I wouldn't hear that music. My body would still be there. I wouldn't feel annoyed because there's no perception of the music. So there has to be a perception of the music, obviously. Second of all, the perception of the music seems to play quite a great role in the way we perceive suffering, or in the way we suffer. I may perceive it as pleasant, then I want the music, then I would suffer its absence. But if I don't like it, then I suffer its presence. So what am I doing precisely within myself to suffer the presence of this music? What is giving rise to this resistance that I feel, that I call annoyance? I don't want this. Why not? Why not exactly? Well, then we would be unprecise again, and we would say, well, because it's annoying. But why is it exactly annoying? What is it annoying to? What is the annoying element really? And then persist until you have the answers to those questions. Often we can't do that, right? It's really hard to do that. Why? Because our mind is totally disorganized. It's all over the place. That's why we need to practice meditation, so then we can cultivate inside wisdom. We can analyze our experience. And by analyzing, I don't just mean intellectually analyzing, which plays some little role there, but it's a direct analysis. You're looking directly at things. You see it for what it is, and thereby you understand its nature. And as you understand it properly, suffering is naturally released, because you see into the truth of the situation. You eventually discover, there is no such thing as the sufferer that I presume to be there. That sufferer doesn't actually exist. All that exists is sound, a perception of sound. But there is no such thing as a me that clashes with that perception of sound. That doesn't exist. And that would be that thing that suffers as well. So when you see its absence, suffering naturally disbands. So it's a matter of analysis, it's a matter of looking deeply. You need to have a great amount of awareness, you need to have a great amount of stability in your mind, you need to be able to spend time with a specific topic. And we cannot do that if we're only used to sitting twice a day for, let's say, half an hour or an hour even. An hour at morning, an hour at night maybe. Maybe you're very diligent, you're sitting every day for the right amount of time, but still you suffer just as before. Some people, they go on retreats, they practice a lot, intensely for 10 days, and they practice the whole day long. Then they notice some progression. As soon as they come out from the retreat, they suffer the noise, they suffer the difficulties of life. They can't stand the fact that they have to go back into their work environment and so forth. So the suffering is still there as it is. You've been tranquilized for 10 days. It's been wonderful. It's been nice, no question. But the suffering is still there, just like before. So we have to be able to switch gears in different scenarios. So for a beginner, here's what I recommend usually. It is to practice being with the breath as you meditate. You, for example, you do breathing meditation, or you have whatever object that you focus on. Keep that object alive throughout the day and slowly let it flow into activities that you do anyways, and especially activities where you usually would waste your time thinking about random stuff. Let's say taking a shower. Or if you have dinner by yourself, something like that. Then, well, there's some practice. Going to the gym. How many of you are going to the gym? Also, you're listening to it, maybe you guys are surfing, right? That's an opportunity. Opportunity to just walk down the beach or take a nice walk in the forest or something like this. I mean, we're walking anyways. Why not also combine that walk with something that's very refreshing and very healthy, which is release your thoughts. Simply be present with your steps, be present with the experience of being there in this moment. It's much more powerful than taking a walk ruminating, thinking about all kinds of things. Lots of people say, I'm going to go out to clear my head. They're not clearing their head, they're muddling it up. Clearing your head would be going out and actually being out there in nature. Really connecting with the elements, really being there in this moment, enjoying, not thinking of your past or your future or any problems that you have. That would really clear your head and give you new energy so you can solve your problems with more creativity later on. So that's one thing. For the beginner, You do your breathing, breath work and whatever, and then you keep that throughout the day. So you walk in the forest, stay with your breath. And yes, there will be some rebellion in your mind, because your mind doesn't really like to be told what to do. It's like a little child. If you tell your mind, clean your room, and your mind doesn't want to clean the room, you can expect some resistance, so you need to handle it carefully, like you would children. You don't want to be overly oppressive, and you don't want to be overly liberal. Just right. You need to give some direction, and you need to put some pressure, but not too much. What that means for you personally, you will find out while you're practicing. This will stabilize the mind a great deal. It will take away a lot of suffering from your day-to-day life. That I can guarantee you. The less you think, the more you're with your breath, the less problems you will have. The more energy you will have at the end of the day. For advanced practitioners, I would recommend you to not using the breath as your subject or your object of meditation, but maybe, for example, the perception of impermanence or emptiness even, or the perception of not self. You use that during your meditation, you get absorbed in that perception, and then you bring that into your day, so you maintain your perception of emptiness throughout the day. You maintain your perception of not self throughout the day, as you're surfing, as you're walking, as you're talking with other people. You keep that up. But you can only do that because you've been training yourself to integrate your meditation practice, the formal sessions, into your everyday activities. Then I can guarantee you will experience great progress. But if you make your meditation practice dependent upon locations, or times, or absence of people, or presence of people, whatever, it's not going to work out. Even if you live in the monastery, even if you're with like a good community, if you're still like depending, and you still have these ideas of how your practice should be ideally, it won't work. You have to be able to switch gears and change it around and build your skill in each one of those areas. In Ajahn Chah's monasteries was, as I've read and heard a lot of practitioners who were students of him say, that his emphasis wasn't actually on sitting quietly in your meditation practice that much. It was much more on working in the communities, helping, building work and so forth, and teachings. And from my time in the monastery, I also remember it very much like that. It wasn't really encouraged to just dwell in your room and be quiet. What was encouraged was working for the community, taking part in activities, making sure that you follow your duties, you clean the toilets, you cook food, you clean the temple, you do this and that. So yeah, we've all had our activities. It was my nature always to withdraw from that, and really didn't like large festivities and activities and events and all that kind of stuff. I always wanted to just escape into my room. But that's where the practice is, isn't it? That's where the suffering is. And if you're not really able to bring your mindfulness and the light of awareness into this suffering there, that's what we practice meditation for, is you become empowered to do that more and more. It becomes easier to penetrate these areas where you're still suffering with awareness, and to let go of the suffering there. And that would be progression. So if today you are a certain person, and next month you have changed, and changed in a better way, then that's a good progression. That's very measurable. If you still suffer the same things the next month, the month after, the year after, it's still a subject, well, address it. And it's not going to go away. Even if you were spending a lot of time in a cave, if you were to come back in the same situation, you'd have to still confront it that way. There's lots of stories about this. One story that comes to mind is of a Tibetan yogi that was living in his cave, and he's meditating, and he's living with a bunch of yogis who are surrounded in other caves. And these yogis, they have these huge matted hairs. Like Rastafaris, right? They have these dreadlocks, and they curl them up on top of their heads. And the length of your hair really also is a sign of how accomplished you are and how many years you've spent on this yogic path, dwelling in caves and being a meditator and so forth. And so this yogi was pretty good at what he did, and he was a good meditator, and he could go into very deep absorptions. And one day, there was a family of rats moving into his cave. And they noticed that there is a lot of material on his head to build a nice nest with, and so they ate away most of his hair and built a nest for themselves while he was in deep meditation. As he came out, he noticed that all of his precious hair was gone, so with it all the proof of what a great accomplished master he is. And he got furious about it. He got super angry at this, so angry, it is said, that he lost his ability to actually meditate properly. Like, it's all these years of hard work, and he has nothing to show, It's like his prized hair is gone. It's like you do bodybuilding and all of a sudden it's all gone, like from one day to the other. That would be frustrating, right? You'd be just like overweight all of a sudden. So that shows very clearly the tendency to get angry and upset was still really much alive in him. It was just asleep. And all it took was just the right circumstances to push his buttons, and boom, off he went. There's many such stories in the text. These stories, they serve to show us that meditation alone by itself doesn't have the power to overcome suffering, but it empowers the process to transcend it, to transcend suffering. It's like sharpening a pencil, right? You sharpen it for a reason. It's not just to have sharp pencils. So you can write something with it. In the same way, you're sharpening your mind with meditation so you can penetrate through to clear seeing, to vipassana, to actually understanding the reality of things and yourself, thereby transcending suffering. So when you're practicing in your own day-to-day practice, see if you can allocate like little sections of your day, such as the bathroom section or the office section, or I don't know, whatever, the morning coffee section, and try to bring a little bit more mindfulness into those sections and make that mindfulness aligned with your meditation practice, with your formal sittings. So if your subject right now is, for example, kindness, and you're cultivating kindness, then you bring kindness into the morning coffee ritual. You bring kindness into your shower ritual. You bring kindness into all the things that you do throughout the day. You keep that in mind. You sustain. You be mindful of the state of kindness, etc., etc. So that's what I would recommend. If you do it like that, you'll definitely see some progress. Good? I hope that helped a little bit. Are there any questions?